Breaking news. The Pima County Sheriff has just told CNN that investigators have recovered DNA from individuals other than Nancy Guthrie and those known to have regular contact with her. That group reportedly includes housekeepers, gardeners, and family members connected to the property. Authorities have now received more than 30,000 tips in the case. Most of those tips came in after the doorbell camera footage was released. Neighbors remain on edge, and no suspects have been identified. What stood out to me was something I noticed immediately. The way the person in the video stared at the front door suggested he wasn't familiar with the home. "Annie, don't open that door. If you do, everything ends tonight." According to multiple sources tied to the investigation, those were the last words heard. Just 17 seconds later, chaos erupted across the Guthrie neighborhood. Terrified screams shattered the silence, and porch lights flicked on one after another. Security cameras sprang to life throughout the area as stunned neighbors rushed outside, only to find Annie Guthrie standing in the middle of the street. She was trembling uncontrollably, sobbing, and barely able to speak. But the detail that changed everything was the man standing across from her, holding up a phone, and repeating the same chilling phrase again and again. "I recorded everything." Within hours, the internet exploded because if the leaked timeline is accurate, then Tommaso had lied about far more than investigators first suspected. Publicly, he claimed he was nowhere near the city that night, yet surveillance footage, eyewitness accounts, and newly surfaced audio leaks now suggest he was standing outside Annie's house at exactly 2 o'clock in the morning, according to sources. Sources familiar with the unreleased recording say Annie can allegedly be heard screaming at him directly, "You used me, Tommaso, you destroyed me." If authentic, investigators believe that single moment completely rewrites the story, because what once appeared to be a criminal partnership may actually have been a carefully engineered trap. As investigators reconstructed the final weeks leading up to the incident, a much darker picture began to emerge long before the screaming started. Before Annie's collapse, before the FBI raids, before the encrypted evidence, warning signs were hiding in plain sight. At the time, almost no one noticed them. Now, people are revisiting every clue and asking the same terrifying question: how did we miss this? Online, Annie Guthrie and Tommaso seemed untouchable. Their social media showcased luxury, loyalty, and an almost obsessive devotion to each other's smiling photos, lavish dinners, and captions about forever and trust against the world. To outsiders, they looked inseparable. But according to those close to them, the reality behind closed doors was far darker. Sources now describe explosive arguments, emotional instability, and behavior so intense that even close friends reportedly felt uneasy around them. One insider later claimed, "They weren't arguing like a normal couple. It felt like something dangerous was constantly building beneath the surface." Then came the strange behavior. Neighbors still can't explain it. Around 3 months before the incident, unusual patterns reportedly began surrounding Annie's property. Residents noticed Tommaso's vehicle, arriving late at night and disappearing again before sunrise. Lights inside the home switched on and off at bizarre hours. The curtains remained closed for days, and Annie slowly vanished from public life. No conversations with neighbors, no appearances, no casual interactions. One resident later described her in chilling terms. "She didn't look stressed. She looked terrified, like she already knew something awful was coming." Yet despite the growing tension, nobody intervened because everything still looked just believable enough to ignore. Then one post changed everything. At exactly 1 o'clock in the morning, Annie uploaded a now-deleted image to social media with no caption, no explanation, and no context. The photo appeared to show a dark hallway with a shadow standing at the far end. At first, people assumed it meant nothing, but within minutes, screenshots spread online after users zoomed in and claimed the figure in the background looked distorted, almost unnatural. 6 minutes later, the post vanished, but by then it was already too late. The screenshots were circulating everywhere, and the internet had begun whispering that something was terribly wrong. Annie never addressed the image, never explained it, and never denied it. Instead, she went completely silent, and investigators say that silence only fueled public suspicion. Meanwhile, Tommaso reacted in the exact opposite way. As Annie disappeared from public view, he suddenly became more active online than ever before. He posted smiling videos, appeared in live streams, uploaded stories deep into the night, and acted almost aggressively normal. Investigators now believe he may have been overcompensating, trying far too hard to convince everyone that nothing dangerous was happening behind the scenes. But the most disturbing clues surfaced just 2 weeks before the incident, when a leaked message allegedly sent by Tommaso in a private encrypted group chat began circulating online. The identity of the recipient remains unknown, but the message contained only one sentence: "It has to happen at night." No mistakes this time. There was no explanation, no context, and no follow-up. But once people connected that message to Annie's increasingly fearful behavior, panic spread rapidly online. Some believed Annie was being manipulated in secret, while others believed she was directly involved in planning something far darker than anyone imagined. Federal analysts reviewing the timeline now believe both theories may be true. According to investigators, Annie Guthrie may not have realized she was already trapped inside Tommaso Caoni's plan until the exact moment everything came crashing down around her. And what happened during the confrontation that followed was reportedly so disturbing that portions of the audio recording remain sealed from the public even today. According to a second insider connected to the investigation, Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Caoni were involved in a massive confrontation just days before the incident that changed everything. This was no ordinary argument. Witnesses described it as emotional, explosive, and deeply personal, the kind of fight that sounded less like a relationship falling apart and more like two people terrified of what was about to happen next. One source claimed Annie screamed directly at Tommaso, "You think I don't know what you're planning? I've seen everything, everything." That single statement immediately raised new questions for investigators. What exactly had Annie discovered, and what was Tommaso preparing to do? That remains unclear, but according to people close to the situation, nothing between them seemed normal after that night. Then Tommaso suddenly vanished for nearly 48 hours. There were no sightings, no social media activity, no phone signals, and no contact with anyone close to him. At the same time, neighbors began seeing Annie pacing outside her home late at night, whispering to herself or speaking on the phone in frantic conversations that seemed increasingly unstable. But one detail in particular has now become central to the investigation. A nearby resident claims they overheard Annie saying, "If they find out, it's over for both of us. Both of us, not just her. Not just Tommaso. Both." That single phrase shifted the entire narrative surrounding the case because suddenly, this no longer looked like a story about a victim trapped by someone dangerous. It began to look like something planned together, something hidden between two people. The situation spiraled completely out of control. Then came the night everything blew apart. 2 o'clock in the morning. That exact timestamp now appears on every leaked clip, spreading across the internet. The moment investigators believe the truth finally began unraveling in public view. According to the neighbor, who secretly recorded the incident, the night didn't begin with screams or violence. It began with silence, complete, suffocating silence, the kind that makes people feel something terrible is moments away from happening. Then came a loud thud, not accidental, not random, but deliberate. The neighbor, now known online only as Source X, says that was the moment he grabbed his phone and started recording. At first, the footage seems almost normal: a dark street, no visible movement, no obvious threat. But then Annie's voice cuts through the silence, trembling and barely audible. "Tommaso, please don't do this." A long pause follows, then slow footsteps, heavy, controlled, drawing closer, and then his voice enters the recording, cold, calm, and emotionless. "You should have stayed out of it." According to the leaked audio, Annie begins crying immediately, not dramatic sobbing, not screaming, but the kind of crying that sounds like someone already knows how this ends. Then, suddenly, a door slams open, with enough force to echo through the entire neighborhood. Lights begin turning on inside nearby homes. People start waking up, and for the first time in the footage, Tommaso becomes visible, standing in the doorway. But investigators and online analysts remain disturbed by one specific detail. He doesn't look angry. He doesn't look panicked. He looks calm, far too calm, almost as if everything unfolding before him is happening exactly according to plan. Then Annie says something that completely changes the direction of the recording. "You said no one would get hurt. You promised me." That line changed everything because it isn't the language of someone completely unaware. It sounds like someone speaking after an agreement has already been broken. In that moment, public opinion split down the middle. Was Annie secretly involved? Did she help plan something she no longer understood? Or was she manipulated into something those far more dangerous than she ever realized until it was too late? Then the footage becomes even more disturbing. The camera shakes violently, and a metallic object can be heard hitting the ground. Annie suddenly screams, "No! This isn't what we agreed on." Agreed on. Those two words instantly confirmed investigators' worst fears. There had been an agreement. There had been a plan. But something had gone wrong. Something had changed, and according to the leaked recording, Tommaso never denies it. Instead, he steps closer and quietly delivers the line that sent the internet into total chaos. "It's too late to back out now." That sentence alone transformed the entire case, because it confirmed one terrifying possibility: none of this was random. It was premeditated, organized, and known about in advance. But the most shocking moment comes seconds later. A third voice suddenly emerges in the background of the recording, faint, distorted, but clear enough to understand. Do it now before anyone else sees. The moment those words surfaced online, the investigation exploded into something far bigger than anyone expected. Because now there was another person involved, someone hidden, someone neither Annie nor Tommaso ever publicly acknowledged. According to analysts reviewing the footage, Tommaso immediately turns his head after hearing the voice, almost as if he's receiving instructions. Annie begins backing away in panic. The camera glitches violently for a moment, and then the video cuts out completely. No ending, no answers. Just confusion, panic, and one terrifying question: who was the third voice? Federal sources now believe this incident may never have been limited to Annie and Tommaso alone. Investigators are increasingly convinced they were operating inside something much larger and far more coordinated than the public ever realized. Then came another disturbing development. Less than 20 minutes after the confrontation, Tommaso's phone activity vanished completely. Every message, every call log, every digital trace linked to the device was erased with professional precision, almost as if someone had already prepared for the evidence to disappear. Meanwhile, Annie never left the scene. Witnesses say she remained outside, crying uncontrollably and repeating the same sentence over and over: "I didn't know it would go this far. I didn't know." That statement instantly divided the internet. Some believed Annie was finally telling the truth. Others believed she was trying to save herself after the plan collapsed in public view. Because if Annie knew about the operation beforehand, then she was never just a victim, she was part of the story from the very beginning. But investigators now warn that the most disturbing revelation may still be ahead, because what authorities are uncovering about the mysterious third voice and Tommaso's true objective that night is about to push this case from shocking into something almost impossible to believe. According to multiple online sources, the situation erupted into total chaos after an anonymous account released a massive investigation thread packed with screenshots, voice comparisons, location pins, and one claim that instantly changed the direction of the entire story. The thread alleged that the mysterious third voice, heard in the leaked confrontation video, didn't belong to a stranger at all. Instead, it supposedly belonged to someone from Annie Guthrie's inner circle, someone she personally trusted. That revelation sent the internet into an immediate meltdown because the next image included in the thread showed a blurred photograph of two people standing together late at night, on the very same street where the incident later unfolded. The caption beneath it read, "Taken 2 nights before everything collapsed." People immediately began zooming in on the image, analyzing shadows, body language, and facial outlines, convinced they recognized the unidentified figure. Within minutes, online theories exploded. Suddenly, this no longer looked like a conflict between Annie and Tommaso alone. Investigators and internet analysts alike began asking whether the entire situation had been orchestrated from inside Annie's own circle. What first appeared to be manipulation was now starting to look more like coordination. Then celebrities and influencers entered the conversation, making the situation even more volatile. One major influencer posted, "Everyone keeps blaming Tommaso, but Annie doesn't look innocent either. This feels planned." Another public figure claimed they recognized the third voice from somewhere else entirely and warned followers that the story was far bigger than people realized. But the reaction that pushed the internet into full-scale panic came from a verified account claiming there was a second unreleased video showing Annie speaking privately with a mysterious third person before the incident ever happened. If that second recording exists, it could completely destroy the narrative that Annie was merely a victim caught in someone else's scheme. Then another leak surfaced. This time, it was a short, heavily distorted voice note that many online users immediately claimed belonged to Annie herself. In the recording, a female voice allegedly says, "He thinks he's in control, but he has no idea what's coming." That single sentence triggered another wave of theories because suddenly the power dynamic became unclear. Was Tommaso manipulating Annie from the very beginning? Was Annie secretly manipulating Tommaso, or were they both being controlled by someone operating from the shadows? Then came another disturbing revelation from a new insider source. According to the leak, the so-called midnight plan was never supposed to happen that night. Investigators now believe the operation was unexpectedly moved forward, rushed into motion, after someone altered the original timeline. According to sources, that decision may be the reason everything unraveled in public instead of remaining hidden. But nobody knows who changed the plan. Was it Tommaso trying to accelerate events? Was Annie panicking? Or was it the mysterious third voice, pushing everything forward before anyone could back out? As more leaks surfaced, the internet transformed into a full-scale digital battlefield almost overnight. Online communities split into 2 hostile camps, Team Annie and Team Tommaso. Supporters defending Annie argued that the fear in her voice during the leaked footage sounded completely genuine, and that she was clearly manipulated by someone far more dangerous. Others rejected that theory entirely, pointing to Annie's own words during the confrontation, especially the moment she screamed, "This isn't what we agreed on." To them, that sentence alone proved she knew about the plan beforehand. The debate quickly turned toxic. People stopped discussing evidence and started attacking each other directly. Old interviews, deleted posts, archived live streams, and years-old photographs suddenly resurfaced as internet users desperately tried to prove their own version of the truth. Celebrities poured even more fuel on the fire. One major public figure openly declared during a live stream, "This whole thing feels staged. I'm not buying the victim act." Within minutes, the clips were everywhere. Another celebrity immediately fired back, accusing the public of doubting women every time they speak about fear or manipulation. At that point, the story stopped being only about Annie and Tommaso. It evolved into something much bigger. Manipulation versus accountability, victim versus mastermind, truth versus performance. Then a major media outlet published a headline that escalated the situation even further. Sources claim Annie may know more than she's admitting. That article alone shifted public opinion once again. Neutral observers, who had remained silent, suddenly began taking sides. Some believed Annie was hiding critical information, while others argued she was being psychologically torn apart in front of millions watching online. But the moment that truly shook the internet came when a former friend of Annie allegedly stepped forward and made one chilling statement: "Annie isn't who people think she is. She's smarter than anyone realizes." That sentence immediately triggered another avalanche of speculation. Smarter how? Calculating? Manipulative? Or simply aware of a larger operation nobody else had fully uncovered yet? Then, an online poll asking a single question: "Do you believe Annie is a victim or part of the plan?" received more than 300,000 votes in less than an hour. The results were almost perfectly split down the middle. No clear answer, no consensus, just growing confusion, paranoia, and tension as the entire internet waited for one thing: undeniable proof. And, according to multiple insider sources, that proof may have finally surfaced early this morning when a completely new leak appeared online. Unlike previous clips and distorted recordings, this one was reportedly clear, time-stamped, and verified by multiple independent sources, a full video with no missing sections, no distorted audio, and according to those who have seen it, the footage doesn't merely complicate the story. It completely shatters everything people thought they knew. The video reportedly begins with Annie Guthrie sitting alone, inside what appears to be her living room. A clock visible behind her reads exactly 1 o'clock in the morning, approximately 45 minutes before the confrontation outside her house. But the detail now terrifying investigators isn't where she is, it's how she looks. She's not crying, she's not panicking, she's calm, far too calm, for someone supposedly only moments away from becoming a victim. The leaked footage grows even more disturbing seconds later when Annie suddenly begins speaking, not to herself, but to someone sitting just outside the camera's view. And then it happens. The mysterious third voice, the same one heard during the confrontation at 2 o'clock in the morning, responds again. This time, completely clear, no distortion, no static, no uncertainty. For the first time, listeners could truly hear the voice. And what Annie says next instantly changes the course of the entire investigation. "Are you sure he doesn't know?" A brief silence follows, before the third person calmly replies, "He thinks he's in control, let him." That single exchange sent the internet into complete shock, because it confirmed something investigators had only suspected before. There was a planned operation long before the confrontation ever took place. But Tommaso may not have been the one truly controlling it. Then Annie leans forward and quietly whispers the line that has now become the most replayed moment online. Once this happens, there's no going back for him. For him, not for her, not for them. For him. And suddenly, the entire narrative flips again. If Annie was referring to Tommaso, then this was never just his operation. It may have been a setup targeting him from the very beginning. That revelation completely transformed public opinion overnight, because people stopped asking what Tommaso was planning, and started asking a far more dangerous question. What exactly was Annie planning behind the scenes?